What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Twin Sons Podcast, episode 75. As always, brought to you by our sponsor, RuneterraCCG.com, who just released two new articles today. One covering Caitlyn. That one's pretty cool, but I even released one today, which was, I'm going to highlight that real quick. It's covering the non-important cards, not Caitlyn, not Poppy. All of the other reveals, I theory crafted some absolute jank decks that will probably suck, so you probably should just read the other articles, is what I'm going to say at the end of the day. But I do want to highlight that you can fully build with all of the new cards, including Caitlyn and Poppy and all of Bandle City on there. So enjoy the deck builder as new cards get released each day. Episode 75, we're brought to you live from Romania, right, Castmin? Is that where you're coming from?
Yeah, that is right. It's right from Romania.
This is the first time we've branched out that far, right? Because you're, I think, 7 hours ahead of us, right? I mean, I know we did Russia once, but normally we're like UK is 5 hours. So now we're multiple time zones over.
Just move to Southeast Asia at some point already. That
Yeah,
would be fun.
yeah, that's gonna be the one. Someone's schedule is gonna get messed up. But yeah, Casman, we were trying to have Casman on for 2 weeks now. I canceled last week, or sorry, 2 weeks ago. I had something come up, and then last week was just craziness with the seasonal tournament that happened. But now we finally made it happen. So, Casman, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
I am glad to finally manage to be here after 2 weeks. The fourth time is the charm, so I am glad to actually be interviewed after interviewing so many people.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you are the person who has the most interviews in the Runeterra space. I thought we were getting close, but then Casman's just been putting out video on video, just interviews everywhere. We do one a week, Casman. How many do you do a week now? Do you think?
I think on a regular week I'm doing four or something like that. Maybe five
That is a
if
lot.
there's more tournaments.
That is a lot of interviews. Josh, also welcome to the show. How you doing, Josh?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Is this 3 weeks in a row? 4 weeks
I
in a
know this
row?
is crazy. Josh has been here a lot.
This is the first time in like 40 episodes I feel like I could actually have a streak.
I feel like what's actually going on for Josh is that so many P and Z cards are getting revealed. So Josh is like, I have to come on to talk about them.
Obviously, it's my favorite region. It's finally getting the support it needs
It's getting a lot of
by
support.
not adding to any of his old archetypes because they all suck.
Yeah, I
But
don't. I mean, it's like expanding the trap archetype. At least it's doing that, kinda.
yes, it is. It is changing its archetypes into actual, hopefully viable archetypes.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way.
So we'll dive into all of Poppy and Caitlyn. I think there's even a couple other reveals that we didn't get to talk about. So we'll see how much time we have after all that to chat about every one of these cards here. But first, we just want to get to know Casman a little bit better. So, Casman, can you tell us a little bit about? It doesn't have to be card games in general, but just your gaming history growing up. How'd you get into games?
I got into games in my second grade actually when I first got my computer. I'm not one of these kids that is digital born, alright? I've got my PC pretty early, and my first games weren't something very exotic. They were, I think, I was making cakes in the Windows simulator or something. Those
Nice.
were my first games. And I was really enjoying them, to be fair. If you would put me to play them right now just to take a little bit of time off from Runeterra, I probably will and probably will enjoy it. But now there are things like Overcooked.
Yeah, right.
Overcooked, incredible. I love Overcooked.
I was gonna say it sounds like a simplified version of Overcooked, right? It's
Making cakes. That's amazing.
That's
That is
amazing.
definitely a very a first on the cast for us to hear. Started making cakes.
yeah, we haven't heard that one yet. That's true. Where did it go from cakes? How did you branch into, I guess, card games or even just other video games from cakes?
I mean, I didn't have many real games until I think Assassin's Creed 2, and I think the Assassin's Creed is one of my favorite series, if not my favorite series, because it has such a good deep story building, and then they simply screwed because they killed their protagonist. Sorry, guys, if I give you spoilers, but at some point it's gonna happen.
Oh yeah.
Uh, moving along, like with card games, I think like everyone. I actually played card games, I think, in kindergarten. I was having those Yu-Gi-Oh! Shiny looking cards that nobody knew what they did. We knew they had some numbers on them. We knew they had some cool illustrations. We were putting cards over each other, and at some point, someone had to win. We didn't know why someone had to win, but someone won.
That's how I still
I know
play
those
Yu-Gi-Oh!
times.
Yeah.
Isn't that how the game works, though?
I think that's pretty much how
Asking.
Yu-Gi-Oh is. Yeah, I'm. See, I was not really a big Yu-Gi-Oh guy like ever. I had like a base deck. I was definitely more Pokemon caught my eye a lot more back then, I would say.
I still don't know how that game works. I'm just watching the anime and still don't understanding anything.
Yeah, I mainly just collected them. That's all. The game's
Yeah.
okay.
It's funny because Pokemon, like when I was younger, it seemed like so daunting to learn. Is like, oh my goodness, you have to put these chips to do these powers. But then, like, I actually learned how to play it when I was in college, and I was like, this isn't too complicated. You just get your GX and you win the game, you know?
Yeah, it
That's
wasn't
all.
like that when we were growing up. Now
I
there's
know.
crazy stuff, dude. Now there's like, yeah, you get one-time use the attacks and they just obliterate people. Yeah. Welcome to the Pokemon podcast. That's what, yeah, that's what we're
Yeah,
talking about today.
that's what episode 75 is for.
Yes. Okay, so what is there any other card games in that lineup after Yu-Gi-Oh? Or is Lore like your
I'm
first big one?
I mean, obviously, like everyone going into digital card games, I had to play Hearthstone.
Of
I
course.
did not enjoy it because it was the first one, but it was the only one that you had available.
Yeah.
So you were this guy that was free to play because you do not have enough money to invest into digital card games or you do not want to. You are trying to grind. You do not have success because other players are just people that are dumping money into the game.
Oh
You
yeah.
are watching the streamers. You want their decks, so on and so forth. And yeah, like initially I was a control player, but I could not play control per se because it was expensive to play the decks. You needed a lot of epics, a lot of legendaries. So
Yeah.
I did what each smart player should do. You just switch to aggro and beat everyone else because your deck is crap, but your deck can curve out. They need to find the answer.
Yep.
My first legend, I think I got with Pirate Aggro when they
Nice.
released patches, and after that, I completely closed the game. Like I didn't touch the game anymore. I was like, all right, I made legend. Now what?
Retire on
There's
top.
nothing else to do. Yeah,
I love it. Pirate Aggro was a blast. Our other host, Mikey, was a bit. I mean, he played a ton of Face Hunter, and then pretty much every type of warrior deck he could come up with. But yeah, he loved a bunch of the different aggro decks with the pirate decks too, just all the different weapons and patches was like crazy. He was the one that came out of your deck, right? And just like attacked
yeah.
anytime. Yeah,
You just summon a pirate, you get a 1/1 that attacks
yeah,
you, and it was pretty much on the rise. So
yeah.
just more them. You don't need to think too much.
Love it. Okay, so then you eventually got out of clean off of Hearthstone. So how did lore come about? When did you hear about it, and when did you start playing it?
I didn't actually start lore straight off the bat. Of course, I had a few more card games, I think, on the line.
Hmm.
What was there? There was Gwent, I think. I just made top 100, I think, in closed beta. Then I got bored. I decided to close the link with the game. Then there's this one game that is still being played. I think it's called Eternal, which is basically a better Magic the Gathering arena. I
Hmm.
made, I think, top 20 in my first month, and then I got bored and I closed the link with that one as well.
I like how you just retire as soon as you top everything. It's like first
Peak,
Exactly.
I assert
peak
dominance.
gone.
Yep. I love it. Well, how long are you gonna be playing lore for? I feel like you're gonna win a season. I'll just be like, I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm retiring.
Kind of. I, with Lore, I came about the time they actually got it released. Like there was, I actually played Artifact, but we don't talk about that one. That is a dead game through and through. I was watching stream because he was playing Artifact, of course, and then he
Yeah.
started playing this LOR game, and I was like, I hate League of Legends. I hate that game. Okay, it's a MOBA where everyone is toxic, but I do love card games
I agree.
because it's my own skill that matters, not that of the other player. Okay, maybe if the other opponent is dumb, then it matters a bit. Never
Sure.
mind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I need a card game in my life. I played pretty much everything. So I started with LOR and it's been fun ever since because they have this different experience, right? And the most important experience is this spell system that they implemented because you can bank the mana, you can represent more cards. You don't need to play Hearthstone. You don't need to play the best single player game in the world, right? Your opponent is allowed to have counterplay. You are
Right.
allowed to have counterplay. You need to use this noggin that you have atop of your neck for once in a card game.
It is really weird. It's like all of the digital card games that I've played do have that feel, but before lore at least, that you are playing more of like a single player game, and then your opponent's playing a single player game, then you're playing a single player game back and forth. But lore has really replicated a lot of what I've played in physical CCGs, which is that back and forth type of feel to it. So it's definitely what caught my eye. And I mean, yeah, like you said, you don't have toxic teammates flaming you. I mean, Josh and I get those all the time on League Stills.
Those emotes, though,
Yeah, the emotes. You can get
you
flamed
know,
by the Lulu
people
and stuff.
do get triggered by those emotes. We know, one for sure, Flockton
Yeah.
always saying, can you ask for no emotes? Even though there's a mute button
Yeah, his biggest one
in
in
the
this
client.
entire game is to be able to just mute all emotes before they even enter the game. Emotes are the best part of the game, guys. You gotta enjoy the emotes. So, Casman, I do have a question. In general, for content creation, you've played all these other card games. Did you ever make any content for any of the other card games?
Not at all. I
Nothing.
did not
Okay.
make anything before LR.
I'm mostly the same. I did like a little bit for a physical card game for Star Wars, but mostly the same. No content before this, so we're in the same boat. So then, what made you actually like break that pattern then?
Well, I got into casting. I think that's the main thing. Like last year in July, end of July, I got into casting and I started enjoying it. Props, by the way, to Caster James because he's the one that said, "All right, you can come in. Like it's gonna be fun."
Yeah.
And it was shit because I did not have a good mic. I wasn't even on camera. I was streaming from my laptop. It was my laptop's mic. Everything was shit on the first one.
Always.
Always.
Yeah, it happens.
But
So
then things improve because you get like I got tips from James on how to improve as a caster. I also got tips on what gear I get because he's in the business for a long time. He even cast before me in other card games, so he told me, "Look, you should try to get this mic. You should try to get this camera. You should try this and that," and it worked out eventually.
then, I mean, I'm assuming is that where Castmin the name comes from? Is that
Yeah, like my name, well, my nickname because that's the most usual that people call me is Cosmin. So I was like, Cosmin, Castmin, yeah, makes sense. Just put it there, throw it away. It's gonna catch the eye of someone.
honestly, it's more thought than we put into our podcast, Josh,
It is.
which is pretty terrible.
I mean, I mean, you had some thought when you made the name, and then you're like, "Oh, this is my name. It's going to be the podcast name."
Yeah, yeah, pretty much how it worked. Yeah, yeah. 75 episodes
And then
later.
you're like, "Oh, there's originally two people, so a twin. It makes sense."
That did make sense, yeah. And then, quickly learned that two people is not enough to run the show. Meanwhile, we're doing this once a week. Meanwhile, Castman's doing it 4 times a week solo, too. I mean, no co host.
And
Just
I'm
the
also doing all the graphics and the editing and the recording.
It's a ton of work. So, I really want to talk about, in general, you went from casting, and now is your main, goals in general for your content I want to talk about, but is your main goal now more on the interview side of tournament players, or where do you see it taking you? What do you want out of it?
At this point I think I cannot separate the two. Like I enjoy casting because I started casting not knowing anything, but did have some sort of background because I was a public speaker before.
Hmm.
So I had a sort of idea of what do you need to talk to people so
Yeah.
they are entertained. But now I love a lot color casting because for people that are not aware of, it's two people, but the two people don't just talk about whatever goes through their mind. There needs to be some harmony over there. There needs to be some sense in what they're doing. So one side is the analysis, one side is the play-by-play. The play-by-play talks about what's happening in the current moment, what implications do the cards have, and what I do love because that's my part is the analysis side because I get to speculate what's going to happen, how they're going to play with their deck, what's their outs. So that's why I enjoy casting. On the other side, I enjoy interviews because I was at the low level. I mean, I don't consider myself at a high level now, but I was at the level where people would not get to know me, would just look on the internet, who's this guy Castmin? I can just scroll over. It's nothing important. But probably it's still the case for some people now, but it doesn't matter. And I was like, okay, but I want to give these people that are playing these tournaments week in, week out a chance so they get featured against that the chance that they get to express their point of view, and at the same time, the viewers get to learn from what they're talking about because they're winning a tournament. It's not like they threw three decks away and that's their lineup, that's how they're going to win. So they have the expertise. So the viewers get that expertise, and in turn, they get to know about these awesome people. So I cannot part ways with neither casting or interviews.
I love it. That's great. Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge thing. I mean, watching a tournament is helpful, right? But actually getting to hear about lineup discussion and what they did to make their lineup, how they actually executed the lineup, what they banned, is it's the perfect post game interview type situation that we watch in sports all the time. It 100% should be happening in esports, and it does in some. And obviously, you're taking tournament winners from all sorts. It's not You're not just taking like the top seasonal tournament winners. You're taking fight night winners. You're taking every weekend. There's winners from tournaments all over the
The
place.
seasonal winners too.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, so you're taking people from literally all over the community scene and just giving them not only a shot to give them a platform to actually talk about what they're playing instead of just them showing up to play the games and leaving, but also informing everyone watching. So I'm a big fan. Definitely salute the idea in general, and B the pure amount of time I'm sure you have to put into this every week to get that many interviews out. It's a lot.
Uh, we, we were talking about what hour we need to record the interview because now it's the middle of the night for me, but I do not mind because sometimes if I need to wake up, I do wake up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. just because the other person is on another time zone. But I do want to give them that flexibility. So
Yeah,
I'm flexible myself and I will do want to get them out there and tell people, hey, this guy is amazing. Just watch him.
yeah.
Watch what he's saying.
Yeah, Josh, we gotta try a 5 a.m. podcast one
Good.
week.
5 a.m. podcast.
I mean, we've made our guests do some crazy things before. We're not as flexible. We're still working like 9 to 5s. You and I,
Yeah.
I'm still going in every day. I know COVID's been weird. Josh is at home sometimes, but I know some people who are just they're just as flexible as can be, like Castmin. It just amazes me.
Yeah, dedication.
It is. It's pure dedication. Josh, you have any other further questions for Castmin before we jump into some Caitlyn and Poppy talk?
No, I just wanted to say I appreciate basically, your goals and you want to, get these players recognized and stuff, and I like that is what you're striving for, and you'll do anything to make sure that they're recognized. I think it's really cool.
Even waking up
Oh,
at
thank
4 a.m.
Yep.
I do have some hidden agenda. Well, it's not really some hidden agenda, really, because I have it. I have it everywhere where I'm streaming or I'm casting that. I do want at some point to get into that League Partner program, and
Oh, sure,
most
yeah.
importantly, because I'm casting, I do want to get to cast a seasonal war words. That would
Yeah,
be
right.
the pinnacle of casting,
Awesome.
right?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, they've been doing. Have they announced the EU lineup? I know they just announced the North America seasonal lineup. I think yesterday or so. I
I
didn't
mean, we
see.
know what Southeast Asia has because on Southeast Asia it's always going to be Moonboy and Zero Infinity who are doing a great job. And recently
Yeah,
Excelsior, who is also pretty known,
yeah,
they're playing with the first slot. And on NA, it's pretty amazing because they bring all these awesome people every single time.
yeah,
And as I said on Twitter, I'm finally glad we're seeing more and more tournament casters like Boulevard and the J Doza are amazing casters
yeah,
that have been grinding this game from the start and they deserve it. Same for Skarzik. They are some people that you have to learn from.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean it's been awesome just to get to even interview the interviewers and casters like this, Josh. We're in a pretty cool position that we've gotten to do this so many times because we've literally interviewed all those people and gotten to know them, and it's crazy. I've casted once, and it is tough. It is very difficult. Very difficult to make yourself sound like you're saying anything important. But luckily, I had Scarzigs backing me up, and he just sounded great the whole time. And then I just kind of hid in the background, and it worked great.
That works.
Yeah, that's the strat. All right, so we have a bunch of cards that got revealed. So we're gonna
Yes,
let
we do.
Castman stick around and talk to us about all these cards. There's a ton. I mean, I don't remember where we were at on the last episode, but I'm pretty sure we didn't have any prank cards out. And speaking, we were just speaking of Scarzigs. So he is very against the prank mechanic in general. It is a hand manipulation, hand disruption mechanic, and they can be very no fun in certain card games. They also can be a bit trolly in general. I'm okay with prank. Josh, you want to go first? What are your overall feelings of the prank mechanic?
Right. I mean, it hasn't happened to me yet, so we'll see my reactions then. But just reading it, I am super excited for it. It's like I know as soon as people hear that their hands are going to be messed with, it's like, oh my goodness, this is horrendous. But
Yeah.
it's not like it's going to be happening. I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll happen every turn, but it's not. I feel like it's not going. It's going to be impactful, but not to the point of like, oh, I lost it. I mean, if you surrender right away, then yeah, I guess it's super impactful. But it
If it tilts you to the point of insta surrendering, then yeah, very impactful mechanic.
yes, but I'm excited to see it happen. I think it's pretty good because it's like the stuff that they release, they might have like a little bit less stats. They might be a little bit understated. So they get this buff by their deck being able to debuff um, their opponent's stuff. So I think it's really cool. I think it opens up another little area of design space, and anything that opens up design space, I'm all for. So
Yeah, Castmin, what do you think about prank?
I think it's a tricky mechanic, right? Because you need to have a lot of build around into it. You need to play very specific cards. So, what works best when people are trying to build upon their strategy? Aggro. Aggro does not care about disruption that much, right?
Yeah,
You
right.
just go curve, you just go curve, you just go face, and they are trying to set up their combo in the meantime. They are trying to prank you, and the jokes are on them because you are finishing their game for them. Like,
Yep.
oh yeah, these prank cards are so fun, but it's too bad you're not gonna play too many, maybe two or three, because you're gonna be dead by that time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it doesn't appear like it's going to be that strong from what they've shown so far. It definitely has some known synergy that's pretty cool. I mean, like I made a Victor deck with it and highlighted in that article. It's just there's so many cards that create them. I mean, there's the Benomone. I don't even know what that thing is, but I'll switch over the screen so we can show it here. The Benomome, who's the 4-drop 4/3, who creates two pranks. So he's kind of like a chump wump in some ways, where he's creating pranks. Of course, you got the Otterpuss itself, who just when summoned create a prank. You have a girl who Nexus
love the
strikes.
Otterpuss.
The Otterpuss better be a guardian for sure. It must be
So
a
cool.
guardian. The Kelp Maidens create pranks. So there's a lot of cards here that are just creating pranks. Up here you can see them, and it's just like, yeah, I don't know. It just seems like there's some synergy there, but like Casman said, like this is probably going to get ran over by aggro style decks, right? I mean, their units are understated, so they're not going to care. And yeah, I don't know.
Did we get a list of I think maybe I saw on Twitter of the pranks that you can get.
It's -2 attack. I
Yep.
think you can get +2 on the cost, and you cannot block at the same time, and that's kind of it. And I think +2 cost on spells as well. That's kind of the list generically.
Yeah, it's
Plus
like
two costs on spell. So I could
yeah.
see, so like if you're able to chump block all like and trade with the aggro, I could see maybe them losing a turn, like a kill turn on turn 5 or 6, to then give you like be able to stall. I could see him disrupting it. I feel like maybe they would just get run over because they can't keep up.
Mhm.
But I mean, if it's a low cost deck and it's just made to disrupt and then maybe use I haven't thought this out, so I'm not going to try, but it could disrupt the aggro a little bit to maybe allow you to get your win con. But I can see why it's like if aggro will probably just run them over. But if you can make like a decimate equals 6, it's like if it's not deadly, that is pretty painful for aggro to have to pay a 6 mana decimate.
But
It's
the decimate needs to hit only once, right?
yeah, yeah.
That is true.
Yeah, it's kind of like we were talking about with the aloof travelers, like hitting key cards. Like if you can up the cost of something, that's like discarding the decimate in general. Yeah, it has like some functionality, but yeah, the stat loss might be too vicious. I'm very curious if like if just some prank cards kind of get sprinkled into certain decks where it's not like, all right, not the whole focal point, but will people want to just run like if you're just, running a couple cards here and there that have some prank, and we don't know exactly what's going to have prank right now. There's not a ton of cards, but like even the trinket trade, I could see seeing other play. So the trinket trade here is the one cost Bandle City card that's manifest an Otterpuss or one of two spells from your region that costs three less. So that might happen occasionally when essentially you're just trying to go for a spell, but the two options that they give you with the manifest aren't great. You get an Otterpuss and you run that. It's like, could you possibly want that a little bit here and there? And Otterpuss is decent in general with a tune, and will those random pranks kind of come through? And I think that's more of what Scarziggs was worried about a little bit, more just like the random annoyingness that the prank mechanic is going to bring consistently throughout games where it's just going to hurt your deck. And now I'm not having fun because I'm playing a game where my River Shaper has 0 attack, right? That's like the example they used was pretty vicious. Hitting the River Shaper to essentially silence it was pretty hilarious, but...
So I think it goes like there's no win con shown here. So obviously you have to
Yeah.
build a win con. But it seems like this would just be like stalling to get to your win con. And it's like okay, so if you disrupt the River Shaper, it's like okay, it can hurt the deck a lot, but it's like they still have a clear path of what they're doing. It's like
Yeah, and you don't
the, sh-
still.
the sh- yes, it's just a prank on a River Shaper, and as of right now, I mean, unless we include Poppy or Caitlyn, I haven't seen any like 100% true finisher that gets added into the prank deck. So I think it's like what you said, they're like little add-ons here and there that could
Yeah.
just disrupt.
That's why I was trolling with the Victor thing, but it's like hilarious because there's so many cards that create. It's like, all right, well, Victor's going to get massive with pranks, so eventually he'll get elusive or overwhelm or something. Like, sure. But it's not going to be good, but it'll be very trolly. I'll troll
I
my way to
mean,
wins.
I think the people are afraid because you kind of get them out of quote unquote their comfort zone, right? Because
Yeah.
LOR has been this awesome game that was always very stable. You always knew what you're playing against, what are your routes, what are your opponent's outs, and all of a sudden, Hearthstone meets LOR and everything is going to be random. Manifest is going to create a lot of random cards. Is going to prank your decks and debuff them in ways you are not sure how are they going to affect your game
Yep.
and your gameplay. So I think that people are afraid not only because these mechanics exist, but eventually they need some support. You said that right now they do not have a win con, but what if they get one? Then
Yeah, right.
things get dicey.
Yeah, besides the Ladros Dreadway combo with concurrent timelines, which Riot jumped on pretty quick, which it was still a pretty terrible deck. It had less than a 50% win rate or nonsense, but it seems like Riot does a very good job of balancing RNG right off the bat.
Yeah.
And we have seen like Targon's Peak came out, everyone's freaking out. They're like, "Oh, this is broken." It's like it's not broken. It's like Hextech Foundry come out, you don't even not Hextech Foundry, the University. University comes out and you don't even see that. The people don't even remember that card exists. And it's like this
Yeah.
RNG's here. So like with Manifest, and it's like the only RNG that has really worked to at some given time is the Celestials.
Yeah, the Invoke
And
package. I was gonna say they did the same
yes,
thing for the Invoke package. Invoke really spooked people for sure. I do get it because this is like, and it's a really interesting topic. They're shaking the core a lot more because they're like doubling down on the shrooms idea of traps, right? And they're adding Caitlyn and adding a ton of shroom support. They're adding a little bit of RNG with the Manifest. They're adding hand disruption. They're adding like a lot of even mill type cards. I mean, there is more cards that say discard a card from their hand than in this just couple reveals than there have been in like the entire game. So I get it. It's definitely people getting very spooked out because it's all of a sudden they can really mess with your deck and handle a bit more. Yeah, I'm not like super stressed about it though. I'm not. I don't think it's gonna ruin the game per se, or even just really be all that good yet. But I get the worry of if it is like the best deck, how miserable would it be if like this is like SI control is like prank is that
I
good?
can't I can't see that
No,
ever
it's
happening just because it's
there's no
like
way.
no one wants to go a prank mirror. That sounds horrendous. That
Prank
sounds like one
mirrors,
of
baby.
the I hate mirrors, and that mirror sounds like the worst mirror of them all.
That's a
Um,
slap fight right there.
yes. I feel like this is just more fun. And people getting worried about puff caps. It's like most decks, besides control decks, but the meta that has been around for like 6 months now, everyone ends around turn 8. And it's like, is there enough puff cap support for them to win by turn 8? I guess we'll have to see, but I still don't think reliably they could win consistently at turn 8. So I don't know. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I'd like to see it happen first before everyone starts freaking out about all this.
They're gonna run a bajillion puff cat pups, and he's gonna just put 1,000 as the best doggo ever. Put 1,000 shrooms in their deck and
Yes,
win.
I hope so. That'd be amazing.
Catherine, any final words on like the prank? I know we're kind of just talking about everything in general before we dive into Poppy. Anything else you want to say on that topic?
Well, we've been talking a lot about how prank can affect the game literally and shake the core, as you said. So,
Yeah.
quick educational moment. I'm going to give you a lesson and a cheat code that you guys are not going to forget. Because I do suppose that some of you are not competitive players, are not through and through invested in the game. But some of us, if not most of us, because I do love to do that too, love complaining about certain cards. And my cheat code and my tip for you is do not get really distracted or do not call a card out for being too good unless the competitive players try and jump on it, because they are the players that are playing the game most. They are training day in and day out. They are practicing. They are trying to fit some cards in and out. And if something is very oppressive, something is really disruptive, then they are going to make a mess and they are going to call it out.
Yeah.
But try not to call every single card that is killing you in one game broken, because that's not the case. Just try to visualize the bigger picture and try to listen to those guys that you're actually watching on social media, because they freaking know what they're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Trust me.
Sometimes.
Something.
A lot of them called Wiggly Burblefish trash when it came out, and
That's
that
true.
thing ruled the
After they
meta
get
for.
their hands on it and realize the power,
Yes.
then they're like, "Yep, okay." They're gonna abuse it enough. They're gonna play it enough, and it's going to perform. That I mean, yeah, Wiggly Burrowfish is a great example. Everyone kind of misevaluated it, and then it clearly was amazing. And then the competitive scene proved that it was amazing consistently, right? And they took it to every tournament, and TF Fizz did absurd things to this game. So. Good points.
Yep.
So, Josh, can you enlighten us real quick on anything that you know about Poppy?
So she's this little Yordle. I do not know 100%, but I'm pretty sure she was saved from something, I'm pretty sure, and she randomly woke up and found this hammer. And now the goal of her or her mission that she's on is to find the hero that the hammer belongs to. So she's just like aimlessly wandering around in Demacia, I think, right now, just looking for the owner of this hammer. And that's all she does, just wanders looking for the owner of the hammer.
I love her so much. Okay, so we have, as Josh said, Demacia. We have a Bandle City Demacia card. So she's a 4-drop Yordle. We still don't know what the Yordle tag is going to get us. We've seen the Yordle tag retroactively added to old cards and now introduced in this set for a bunch of new cards. We don't know what it does yet, other than a bunch of cards have Yordle. She's a 4-drop 4/3, so weak stats, but on attack, grant me and all allies with equal or less power than me +1/+1. So she continuously gets better every time she attacks. She has a level up condition that seems a little bit hard to meet. I've attacked with allies 3 times, so if you're not rallying or doing any tricks, that means she needs to survive for 3 offensive turns on attack. When she levels, she gains the impact keyword, which is new, which I don't think we covered last time. But essentially, it's when they strike a defender, they deal 1 to the Nexus. But this keyword can stack, and her attack ability becomes grant me and all allies with equal or less power than me +2/+2 and impact. So she essentially is going to make your very wide board get very large, and also get the impact keyword, which will ping Nexus damage through even defenders. Uh, People are very excited with her in like the scout type build. Castmin, what do you think about Poppy in general so far?
I think Poppy is going to be able to bring back an old demon, and that is Fiora, because that was the problem with Fiora, right? They took 1 HP from her, which I don't think it was really cold, because it was keeping a lot of bullshit. We can call that bullshit in check. Alright? A lot of things wouldn't have happened if Guardian Fiora was here to just keep that bullshit in check. But now, because now And I'm talking about a specific play pattern that you all
Yes,
know.
that we all love.
Exactly. So now that you get to buffer, I think she's going to come into the meta, and not even Fiora per se, but we finally get that Demacia feeling that we have been missing for so long.
Yeah.
That because it's a region that needs to win through board, and for so much time it hasn't been allowed to because most of the things are over the top like burn, most of the things are now elusives. Good luck with that if you only have just 3 sharp sides in your deck. It's literally impossible and virtually impossible. And now you get a board that can challenge the big dogs in the meta, and they need to think twice before, if they are investing, for example, against aggro, do they invest this burn in order to kill one of the units? Do they want to invest it into the face? It's going to be interesting.
It does seem like the revival of like the Bannerman type archetype, right? It has that same type of feel, growing stat lines. And we've seen scouts here and there recently. It hasn't really stuck at all. But I mean, scouts and Bannerman were like two of the most consistent decks in their own time. So it is interesting. I do think she's really hard to level up. What do you think, Josh? You think she's good?
I'm hesitant with her because I just want to like I like the design. I love the design, and we saw Bannerman be, um, very strong at one point. Bless you. But very strong at one point. But now it's like, oh, every turn Poppy could be, or every attack turn Poppy could be like this
Yeah.
Bannerman. Um, but what we have failed to see, besides I guess Shen, is that attacking turn only kind of style really pan out to be consistent. So that's why, and now she has to attack 3 times with allies to level up. So if you don't get scout, it's like you're not getting that effect until maybe turn 10. Unless I mean, I guess you could have free attacks. So what's weird is like if she attacks alone, does that not go towards
Yeah, I think she has to
her
attack with at least one other unit every
yeah,
time.
so it's really weird. So even if you're using like a cataclysm or something like that, it doesn't seem like it'll work. So
Yeah.
I'm worried that if she doesn't have scout, that you'll just never see her true impact, literally. But
Nice pun. Nice
uh,
pun.
yes,
um,
but
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, she's in Demacia, which has a lot of rallying effects. We don't know if Bandle City is going to have anything like that. Yeah, obviously Demacia also could give her Scout, which is pretty nuts. And a little bit high rolling because you have to find the card. But if it does happen, she's going to be pretty beefy, and she's definitely going to be hard to stop once she starts rolling, right? Like once she starts getting bigger, it's going to be really tough for you to get ahead of her. But you can kind of stop the rolling before it starts. It seems pretty okayly right now, which is yeah, I don't know. I hope she ends up at least somewhere. And they did release a lot of support cards for her too. I mean, there's some pretty good stuff in the package that they released. So I know it's a really loved archetype. I mean, people love that style of just playing on curve and swinging with big units. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Castmin? You think it's going to end up being at least two, like tier two?
I think some of us might be misinterpreting. Like, we are thinking about Poppy as a champion that would need to end the game. We are thinking about all these cool effects that she can have. And we talked about Fiora before, which I need to break it down for you, wasn't the real win con of the Demacia decks. It was, as I said, a thing that could keep things in check. It was
Mm-hmm.
that spooky monster down the bed. If you are leaning towards the margin of your bed, it might catch you, so you need to be very careful. And that was basically Fiora. You couldn't let her level up, but at the same time, she was distracting you of what it was actually happening because the board would constantly grow, more units would be constantly added, and at the same time you are stuck with killing Fiora while the Demacia deck would rampage. And maybe this is going to be the Poppy effect as well, because you do want the buff, you do want your other units to get onto the board and get tall, and you want to get wide, and maybe people are going to focus on Poppy and forget that they're dying to a board next turn.
Yeah, and every attack effect is a Bannerman effect. So yeah, I mean that could one or two of those could be enough. It could be. I think one of the best cards here, I gotta talk about it real quick, is this Yordle Squire, who's a 1-drop 2/1 from Bandle City, but it has the Tiny Spear or Tiny Shield created on play, and those are both focus speed cards that just give a +1 attack or +1 health, which is really sweet. It's just a lot of value. They're not created fleeting, so they're created in your hand that you can save them for the moment that you need. So you could instantly drop Poppy and give her the +1 health, tiny shield, so she can at least have 4 health on 4, which is pretty good. Obviously, also you could just do that for any important champion that you like a little bit more. So it's a really interesting card, and I wasn't expecting Bandle City to have it. Like I think it definitely feels like a Demacian card, and I just love that Bandle City is getting something like this that has, they have units that they want to protect. I mean, we already know that, and obviously the +1 damage is good too, especially on like some elusive type units. But I do think the tiny shield is what is going to end up seeing a little bit more play. I really like that Yordle. And then here on the screen as well, you can see that, I mean, there's a bunch of other Yordles that they came out with. They came out with this like pompous Cavalier who has double attack and a 1/1 for 3 mana. So he's obviously supposed to get buffed a ton by Poppy and other cards. He's Bandle City and Demacia as well. And then they have the Yordle Smith, who has a 2-drop 2/2, which is give all allies with equal or less power than me quick attack this round. So that again is like Poppy's effect, where it's just spreading the love throughout your board, and it's going on what we're talking about, just having these Demacian decks. But obviously this is with Bandle City of just this growing force of units that is getting bigger. Yeah, I think it's all pretty interesting cards. I think Yordle Squire is my favorite out of those 3. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, it is very interesting. It's like the Pompous Cavalier for 3. It's like a tough pill to swallow, and it's like if you
Yeah.
don't have the Yordle, if you don't have Poppy coming right after him, then or like the anything else that's buffing, he's I don't know, he's just really bad.
He's
But
he's rough, yeah.
he's really yeah, he's really bad. But the Yordle Squire, I definitely like. I feel like it definitely is a really good one drop. It has a lot of flexibility with your turn 2 and 3. Uh, yeah, I just don't know what to expect just because I feel like maybe I'm a little underwhelmed by it just because we haven't had like a scouts or a really strong like Demacia go wide in I don't
Yeah.
know how long. So
Multiple metas for sure.
I love Poppy as a character, and I love her in League, and I really do like, this go wide set, but we just haven't seen it in so long, and maybe this is what gets it right and makes it stable again. I'm not sure, but
Yeah. Casper, I want to ask you about this next card. So we have Stress Defense, which I think is one of the more interesting cards of this lot. It's a 3 cost burst spell from Bandle City. It is set a unit stat to 1/6, so 1 power, 6 health for this round. But it can be your own unit or an enemy unit, so it can essentially kind of like freeze an enemy unit that's attacking or save one of your units that has low health. It's just like a really weird card, but I do really like it. What do you think about it, Casman, in general?
You know where you have the Lulu spell, the I think it's 4 mana, and you
Yeah.
can just transform a card into a 1/1. It's basically that, but more useful because it's not costing 4 mana, and it is not tied it is a burst speed, it's not focus speed, so you can play it whenever you want, and that's what makes it so great, because you can play it on, especially on defense against a pretty large unit, just to save yourself some HP. And
Yeah.
because you are a Demacia deck, your only win con is through board. If you lose your board, you lose the game at any
Yeah.
point in the game. At the same time, if there's any burn that is threatening one of your units, putting 6 HP on a unit is not really that easy to deal with, because as we know,
Yeah.
this has been the problem for burn decks, not necessarily for SI, because SI is just throwing a vengeance at you and they don't care about the stats. But if you are talking about PNZ and Noxus, it gets slightly harder, because when we are talking about 2 free HP units, the problem gets thicker and thicker, because from 3 HP forward, you need to invest at least 2 cards.
Yeah. Yeah, 6 health is a lot of health. I also love that it's the chicken like that the Pompous Cavalier is riding. It's just running
yeah,
away.
I was gonna say that it's hysterical.
It's so good. All right, let's move on to Caitlyn. We're running pretty deep here, so we'll move to Caitlyn and talk about her. She's quite a mouthful. She's got a lot going on. So she's a 3 drop. She was actually designed both statistically, like through her card, and also written for. So that's like lore wise by Mel Lee, who was on our show a long time ago. But Mel had hinted back then that she was a narrative lead, but she had started transitioning to a designer herself. So I don't know if this is the first. I think it's the first champion she has. I don't think it's the first card, but first champion that she's designed. So congrats to her. That's awesome that she's got a champion out in the game. But Caitlyn's crazy. Caitlyn's a 3 drop. 3/3 with quick attack. So a lot of people think that sounds familiar. There is a lot of 3/3s with quick attack. But she is a Piltover Gonzalez strike, plant 2 flash bomb traps randomly in the top 10 cards of the enemy deck. She levels up when 5 of your traps have been activated. She strikes at when she levels up as a 4/4 with quick attack still, and she plants 4 flash bomb traps randomly in the top 10 cards of the enemy deck, and she deals damage to the enemy nexus equal to the number of traps activated this round. So, essentially, she pairs really well with Teemo right off the bat because shrooms are traps, and now these new flash bomb traps, which I didn't read, but they're essentially just a 0 as they pop off, deal 1 to a random ally. So they don't hit the nexus; they deal damage to the actual board itself. So I mean, she's got a clear pairing with Teemo, but also just a clear pairing with a lot of other things that are just crazy. I don't know. Caitlyn's like a mouthful. I don't know. What do you think, Josh? I mean, this is your region, so are you hyped?
Yes, I she's one of those champions that is like my mind goes to a bunch of different places. The first one I went, it's like obvious with the new mechanic of like, oh, something else happens with when you add 2 cards to your hands. My mind instantly went like to synergy with the Hextech Foundry. Um, there's stuff like that. It's like shrooms with all of the new shroom support. It's like obviously you could just be focusing on traps. I think she's very flexible. She's like a very, very strong 3 drop just because we've seen Draven already. Um, and it's very similar. But I just think she's a really good 3 drop, and what she has her own little win con built in. It might be a little bit slow, but
Yeah.
she can damage the Nexus. She can trade well because she has quick attack. She can control a board depending on how many flash bomb traps you have, and she got a crap ton of support. So I think they're just trying to push this archetype into PZ. Like it needs support. It needs more than just Ezreal coming out of it.
Yeah, it's fair. She,
And yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just saying, does she level up while in your deck? Like 5 of your traps have been activated. It doesn't say seen, right? So she'll just level up while
Yeah.
she's in your deck.
It
And
does.
shrooms count as traps too. Yeah, that's pretty good. Here's the other question. I guess I don't know, Castmin. I don't know if you know this or not, but I don't. People were talking if flash bomb traps will count as targets for Ezreal, because they deal damage to an ally, or it'll be an enemy at that point. I don't know. I don't know if they do. I saw Majin Bey say something that he said from the Insiders program. Like, this pairs really well with Ezreal or something. So I don't know if he was hinting at that. Do you have any idea about that?
I do not have any idea, but I do know from experience that if you do not target yourself or the spell does not say target, you're not going to get the trigger. And because it's random, first and foremost, like the damage is going to happen, but you do not have any control over it, I think it's not going to work for the Ezreal level up.
That's what I thought. I didn't think it would. And then
Yeah, same
like
here.
make it rain hits random targets, but it has the 3 blue lines. Like that, I don't feel like this is gonna have it. I think it's just gonna pop. I don't think it would, but I don't. Maybe there's a weird interaction where it does. I just what I thought he was hinting at. But I mean, if it does, that's crazy for Ezreal too.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's a pretty good way to level him up. We did talk about her champion spell, but her champion spell is pretty good. It's actually a 3 cost fast speed spell from P and Z, and it's deal 2 to an enemy and plant 2 flash bomb traps randomly in the top 10 cards of the enemy deck. So just deal 2 and get 2 traps. I mean, you don't might not actually run that yourself, but as far as another champion spell card goes, it's definitely better than some of the champions we've had recently, at least. So
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to judge because we haven't had anything, besides the puff cap support that was already here.
yeah.
We haven't had anything that has given us delayed damage. So like you're paying 3 to deal 2 damage,
Hmm.
but then possible 2 future damage. So it's like we haven't had anything that to judge off of. Like what if 3 mana is worth doing that, is worth to getting the 2 and then getting a 2 future. So I feel like it's really hard to say if it's like, do you want to run this? Do you not to? Just because we haven't really seen anything like that with a delayed effect
Yeah.
in Runeterra just yet.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that this whole mechanic plants them, a lot of the cards at least, plant them in the top 10 cards, like specifically. So it's like not as delayed as Shrooms could end up being. Shrooms are more RNG based, but it's just like an interesting mechanic that it's placing them quicker to the top, or closer to the top. So It's definitely interesting. And then like we were saying, we got a whole lot more draw options. There's Insider Knowledge, which is three cost fast speed. Both players draw 2 cards. There's other cards in here that also are planning flash bombs. So, I mean, I'm for sure intrigued by the mechanic in general. Castmin, do you think day one? Do you think Timo and Caitlyn is going to be like it's obviously going to get played. People are extremely excited about it. But do you think it's going to be viable and consistent?
Look, nothing is going to be viable day one from testing because everyone knows that a lot of people are going to go testing and they're going to bring their old dusty aggro deck and they're going to farm the testers. Like that's been happening all the time for the players that actually want to climb. So day one is, I guess, not a good day to judge them
Fair,
the
fair.
deck upon, but I don't know. It depends on which direction it takes because, for example, we're talking about Caitlyn's spell that deals to something, and then you plant the path gaps and the viability of it. And I think if you want to play her, for example, to play Caitlyn as a control champion or in a control deck, you do not want that extra cost for something that you can do with simply a Mystic Shot because
Mm-hmm.
what you need in control is actually what the name says, control. Like you want to spend as less resources as you can to remove as much as you can. So you want to invest that Mystic Shot to deal with the threat at hand. You do not want the potential damage. So it might not see play. You might see it being played as the champion spell because if you get it, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good for as far as that. We didn't talk about Poppy's champion spell, but it's 6 cost, place an enemy unit on the top of the enemy deck, which is interesting. It's just a slow speed spell, so it's like it's probably not going to get ran, and 6 mana in Poppy style deck to remove one target is probably not going to happen as much. But this is more removing threats and dealing damage, and it kind of fits into at least a little bit of some Caitlyn decks that they might run. We also got 2 familiar faces though. I mean, I think everyone was freaking out. I mean, first off, I guess we'll go with Karina. So Karina is back. She used to be the 9 drop, but now it's Karina Mastermind. She's a 6 drop 5/5. She has a skill on play, which is called back to her older version as well. It's plant 5 flash bomb traps randomly, or activate the effects of all traps in the top 5 cards of the enemy deck. Very interesting card. I guess you're going to get both choices pop up, and you're going to pick one or the other, kind of like Petty Officer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, either if if you've been dropping a ton of flash bomb traps in the top 10, and their deck is loaded up. Yeah, pretty cool. All right, all of a sudden I get to just trigger all of those right now for a potential kill, or you can just plant some more. She's a really cool card. I mean, it's like a nice callback to the other Karina because it's kind of similar, but it's just like a new take on her. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty flexible. It's like, oh, if you're struggling to level up Caitlyn, it's okay. Plant 5. Or I should say, if you're struggling to put the bombs in the traps into the deck,
Yeah.
you plant 5. If you just need like, they only have a couple units on the board and you've been planting traps, it's like, oh, it's a pretty good clear, or can cause some really bad trades for them. I really like. Besides mechanic wise, I really like that they are bringing this universe and giving us cards from these characters in like their own timeline.
Yeah.
It's like we could see Cytherea grow up, and then it's like we could see Karina. It's like before and then like her final form kind of thing. And
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
just the champions that they're doing this with. I just love that they are bringing back old cards, giving them new mechanics
Yeah.
in different ways.
The really funny thing about her too is that if you activate all the traps and it's both like flash bomb traps and shrooms, she does have like an AoE effect, just like her old version. So
Yeah.
it's like a really weird card. Arguably, the more important familiar face that's coming back is Mr. Von Yip himself, in the art of the Station Archivist, also in the art of the Caitlyn herself in the level 1. But apparently the Station Archivist is the what is the student card, the one that gets a +1 power every time you draw a card. I forget her name.
Makes sense.
But that's her now. She is a 3-drop
Astute
3/3.
Academic? Are you referring to Astute Academic?
Yes, that one. Good job knowing names. It's a 3-drop 3/3 P and Z card that has play. Pick a spell in the top 5 cards of your deck and create an exact fleeting copy of it in hand. I saw a good bit of hype around this card. Castmin, are you a fan of this one here?
I think the main interaction that has been at least speculated throughout the community or with the competitive player is the potential to just send one of your tri-beams that has been kind of leveled throughout the game in your deck, and then you just copy another tri-beam, and then you're all good. You have two big tri-beams.
That's pretty damn hilarious. Yeah. She's interesting. She's like a vanilla 3/3 on 3 because you're probably, unless you saved your mana, if you save all of your mana for 1 and 2 and you play her, then yeah, you'll be able to essentially, if you get a card that is 3 or less, and if you run spells that are only 3 or less, then yeah, you'll be able to guarantee to be able to play something on 3. But she's more interesting kind of later in the game, playing her like on, it gives value to her later because she can dig a spell that's really important, and getting another copy of it's pretty cool. So, yeah, I mean, it's very P and Z. This effect feels right at home for P and Z. I feel like the first P and Z card here that I'm like, oh, this looks like a P and Z card. The rest of these are all just like, oh my god, this is like new. I guess traps aren't exactly new, but they're only having shrooms and now having this has been a big difference. So, what do you think about her, Josh?
Yeah, I think it's a really cool mechanic. I like, anything that tutors is going to create some type of consistency. Um, top five cards, it kind of just gives you like later, it gives you that, oh, I need this now. So it's like I could pull it. I really like it. She has a good stat line. 3 for 3, or 3 for 3 is really good. And then say you have a bad turn two, and it's like, oh, I need to possibly pull a spell. It's like you might have mana for it.
Yeah,
But late, it's like you could get it's like, oh, I really need this spell. It's like you have a chance to get it.
you'll have
So
plenty of
I
mana
think
at
it's a
that
really good
point.
card. Yep.
Yeah, she's interesting in the fact that it's like the top 5 cards does make it where like you kind of need the deck built around her. She obviously can't fit into a deck that's like majorly uh, units and champions and followers and things. You're gonna need to have a decent spell count to consistently hit because it doesn't just pick a spell from the top 5 spells. You do actually have to have a spell in your top 5 cards.
Yes.
So it's kind of like Stalking Shadows in that way, where it's like you can't just run
Oh,
Stalking and you know.
yeah.
Or hear me out, if you do not have the spells in the deck, you can just put them there and then hitting specifically at Go Hard because it
Yeah,
might see a resurrection. You just create Go Hard after Go Hard and then you can draw them reliably even.
yeah, like
Yeah.
Karina Gohard, like old school Karina Gohard with her or something is pretty
It
crazy.
is definitely support for it. One thing that it does do is it is direct support for the mechanic of like adding 2 cards to your deck. I mean to your hand.
Yeah, yeah.
To enable. It does automatically give you that 2 cards added
Yeah, right. You
because
just
the draw and then her created one that she does. So
yeah, they have been pushing that. I guess we'll talk about this last card here because they've been pushing that a little bit. And Josh is referring to these cards like Ambush, which is a 2 cost burst spell from P and Z. It's give a unit +2 this round. If you've added 2 cards to your hand this round, give it elusive this round. So it says this round 3 times in that card. I was like, did I misspeak or did it say this round 3 times in that the card text? But it did. So that card's interesting, but like that, like Josh is saying, instantly if you play a card that creates something else on the turn, then you've already. We believe that drawing a card at the beginning of the turn is going to count as one of those cards. You've added a card to your hand when you draw one, and then creating one other thing should be able to trigger that secondary effect. And that is, I think, the fourth or fifth card we've seen with that type of mechanic between Bandle City and P and Z. So interesting. And this is one of the first kind of stat buffing combat tricks that P and Z has. Right? Can't really think of anything off the top of my head as far as
yeah,
like a
besides
stat buff.
suit up.
Well, we have Suit Up.
Suit
We
up,
have
yeah.
Suit Up.
Suit up is a good one. Yes. Yeah. So this is the 2 cost +2, and then the possibility of giving elusive is interesting. Definitely a different card for P and Z to have.
They had that the gauntlet that gave you +4 in quick attack, right?
Oh yeah,
Rising
yeah,
Spellforce.
Yeah.
yeah. And Vise spell, yeah, right. Gives you the gauntlet
Yeah.
breaker thing, vault breaker.
Very, very weird niche
Yeah, both of those are pretty
spells.
niche spells. I know Swim busted the one open with the stupid Zephyr Sage, or not the guy who reduces their cost of your burst spells by 1. Just
Yeah,
infinite combo.
I
Yeah.
can't think of its name right now. The Cloud Drinker?
Yeah, Cloud Drinker,
Cloud
that guy.
Drinker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so very interesting cards overall. Castmin, but before we let you go here, what is your the number one thing that you're hyped for coming out still? I mean, we don't know what's coming out. We can assume the other Yordles are coming out from League. We can assume that maybe Xerath, maybe Ziggs, all the people from that trailer that came out. Is there anything that you're like in particular super hyped for? I know you said you hate League for the toxicity. I understand, but is there anything that you're hyped for in general?
If I have to think about it, maybe something like Veigar, maybe something like Ziggs, because we know they're going to come this expansion, and I'm really the fan of slow burn type of decks, or at least burn with bodies, because if people know about me, they know that fast with burn is my favorite deck overall. I even managed to get at some point, I think, at top 40 with that deck, so I
Nice.
really enjoy it. Props to Sausage, he was the one that created the deck back when Rising Tides was a thing, and I kept playing the deck, kept reviving it. So I'm really curious if Ziggs or Veigar are going to be this type of cards that can help buff that archetype or make Fansmith great again, once again.
I love it. I'm hoping, man. Those two are going to be nuts.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared. Like if Ziggs comes out and he has some trap mechanic as well, I'm definitely on board that Caitlyn will be broken. Yeah,
You think
because he
so? He's
he's
going to be
very well
what?
good.
Bandle City, and isn't he also like PNZ though?
So him and Heimerdinger came from Bandle City and went to Piltover's On and made a little like tech workshop
There's no
together.
way
And then
PNZ's getting another card, right? He has to be just Bandle City if he comes out.
I don't know why in the lore he's going crazy in Zon, just like
Yeah.
blowing things up.
Yeah, if they have more three different trap mechanics. Yeah, we'll have to see. Maybe he'll just start blasting people though. Maybe he'll just have a bunch of spells and just nuking everybody. It'll be
Yeah, I have no idea.
it'll be fun. So we'll have next week. I think we'll have most of the champions out most likely, and we'll be getting ready for the release. So yeah, until then, we have a whole lot more to talk about each day. But Castmin, before we let you go, can you just please let the audience know where to find you? Any social media platforms that you're on, or your YouTubes, your interviews, your anywhere you're at.
Well, you can find me everywhere as Castmin TV because for some reason there's another Castmin on the social media. I don't know why. Every account that I'm checking, of course they're inactive. Like they're just stealing your name and then they're inactive. They're not doing anything. But yeah, you can find me at Castmin TV both on YouTube. You can find me at Castmin TV on Twitch and on Twitter. And fun thing for you because it's the seasonal event, right? I'm going to release an interview on Friday with a person that has the knowledge to talk about every and each seasonal and give their opinion about what's gonna happen. So keep an eye out for that one.
Sweet, perfect teaser. Thank you, and we will have all of those links in the description below that Casman just said. So please check them out. Like I said, if you're looking for any type of interviews, any type of casting, if you have a tournament that you're hosting, and you need a caster. Castman is all over that. On top of the fact that if you've recently, played in tournaments and stuff, and you feel like getting interviewed, if you've won tournaments, Castman can reach out to you. And if you're also just looking to get more involved in the kind of grassroots scene of tournaments, Castman's definitely a great source for that as well. So check him out,
The,
guys.
the complete package. I'm casting your tournament, I'm interviewing your players, and I'm interviewing you. But yeah, also thank you guys for inviting me because it's
Yeah,
nice and refreshing to be on the receiving end of the interview, not being
yeah,
the guest.
I'm sure. Yeah, yeah, very different from that side of the table. I'm sure. Well, we'll let you get some sleep. Thank you so much, everybody else. We'll catch you
Thank
soon.
you.
Peace.
See you.
Thank you for checking this episode of the Twin Sons Podcast out. If you're looking to support us in other ways, you can check us out on YouTube at the Twin Sons Podcast. You can also check us out on Discord. Join our Discord where we have tons of great discussions and keep you posted on all of the content we make. You can follow us on Twitter, which is just twitter.com/the Twin Sons Pod. You can also follow our co-host, Cruisin' and Josh and even Mikey, all on Twitter as well. All of those links will be in the description of the video or the podcast that you just listened to or watched, as well as Twitch streams. We have all four of us are also streaming on Twitch occasionally, so you can feel free to dive into those. If you want to support us on Patreon to go even a step further, feel free to head over to patreon.com/the Twin Sons Podcast. We have a bunch of different tiers there where you can actually get different upgrades and different support for the show and actually get some nice rewards as well. And finally, if you want to check us out on Teespring, we have a bunch of cool swag based on the logos that we've had made for the podcast over the life of the show itself. So thank you guys again for all of the support, and catch you next time.